Good evening. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I am the West African correspondent, Amara. Welcome to the latest development on the continent. Focus on Liberia uses its applicable opportunity to ensure that we bring to you latest development on the continent. We bring to you stories that affect Africa, and also we try to analyze and come with the latest news across Africa. Sorry for coming to you rather too late. It is because of blackout. Definitely, this is what we are facing here. Even now, we are definitely suffering from blackout. I did not come to you from my normal location. Nevertheless, there are certain important stories that we need to cover up, and we need to keep our listeners home and abroad with information that actually matter on the continent. So welcome to this all-important news forum. Today we have series of headlines, interesting one. That is why I decided to come with the program, even though we are broadcasting out of my normal location. Some of these latest headlines include like signs of infighting in the ruling party of Nigeria as the chairman resigns. Then we also have world poorest need farming forms, not just grain and aid. Oxfam is saying the world poorest country need forms, not just they need forms, not just food and grain. They really need to be given certain amount of forms so that maybe they can help to create a situation where they can be self-reliant in time of food supplies. Then we are seeing how jihadists gone, but we have no food, according to the Mozambique. And now the jihadists are no longer around, but they are saying that there is no food, although they have been able, to drive away the jihadists in the Capo Dagelo region in the northern part of Mozambique, but there is no food, so nothing good to actually drive home. That is what they are saying. Then we are seeing newly coupled shot dead in Cameroon, newlywed coupled shot dead in Bamenda, those who are fighting for the independence of the Amazonian region. Then hundreds of mercenaries land in CAR, that is Central African Republic. The Wagner group have now landed themselves into in the CAR, that is Central African Republic. They are claiming that they are there maybe to provide security to ensure that the referendum that is due to be held later this month is being safely carried out without any further trouble. That is what they are saying. Then Tunisia signs border policy with EU, that is the European Union. Tunisia government or Kai side has signed. With all the atrocities that Kai side is definitely commenting, we are seeing EU coming into Tunisia to ensure that they signed maybe a cross-border policy that will prevent the migrant returning, using the Tunisian route to head into Europe. And we have seen how Kai side and his government have been using the particular scenario to ensure that they inflict a lot of punishment maybe on our African brothers. Unfortunately, the EU has gone into an agreement with them to ensure that they signed an agreement with them to ensure that our brothers and sisters do not actually leave the soil of Africa to head into Europe. I think maybe, although he has not received any official mandate, but he has on numerous occasions been inflicting punishment on several Africans, especially those coming from sub-Saharan Africa. And if he has not been given the opportunity by the EU being fully funded to ensure that he prevent migrants leaving the country to go into Europe, I wonder what he will be doing. Maybe those funding can easily be abused for other things. So it's a very sad one. 5 countries with the weakest security in Africa. We are also going to watch at those analyses and see. So let's start. Let's start in Nigeria. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was elected in February this year, and in an election that was actually conducted on the 24th of February this year. He won the election with 37%, being the president elected with the least amount of valid votes across the country. He actually secured 17% of the total valid vote cast in each of the states in the name of the president, which enabled him to become the president-elect of Nigeria based on the amount of voters who voted for him. However, the chairman for the All Progressive Congress, that is APC in Nigeria, has resigned. He has resigned because he supported the Senate President, Lawan, of Adamawa State during the time he was actually serving, or during the time they were campaigning for the flag bearership of the election. Many of the governors or his colleagues, especially those who are coming from the north, went against his ideology. They thought that he would have supported Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But since that fell out, I think the Nigerian ruling party have not been absolutely cohesive. It has not been together, and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has now taken helms of affairs, and those who never supported him during the time he was striving or trying to campaign to ensure that he's been given the flag bearership of the Nigerian All Progressive Congress Party, also lead the country into election. Those who actually went against the person may end up to lose their vital position. So this senator has gone ahead, the president has gone, the ruling party chairman has gone ahead to resign. He has definitely been replaced, and his deputy said no further or no excuse were actually given for his resignation. But based on wider speculation, it is because he fell out with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the time that he was vowing to become the president of Nigeria and trying to seek for the position of the flag bearer. And this particular Senate president did not actually give the particular president of the chairman of the ruling APC party did not actually give him his support. He did not give him his support. Rather, he ended up giving the support to Lawan, who was the Senate president. When Lawan lost to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he went ahead to win the election. I think the senator thinks that feels that it's no longer safe, maybe because his ideology with that of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the 80-year-olds, may not be together. He has decided now to resign. But we are still expecting a lot of other changes into the political setup of Nigeria. Unfortunately, since Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu took over, he has not been able to set up his cabinet. This is the problem of Nigeria. Like when Muhammad Buhari took over in 2015, I think he's ended up to set up his full cabinet in a space of 3 months. I don't know, since this man won election in February, that was when he won the election. Look at February, March, April, May. Now in July, he has not set up his full cabinet. So all of those things, I'm wondering how he's leading his Nigeria, but maybe he's still making maximum use of the former ministers who were actually in the cabinet when he took over. But we are expecting a very fresh cabinet system to be set up. Maybe people with spectacular mentality should be given the opportunity to lead Nigeria. Now the Senate president has resigned. I think we are expecting a lot of other things to happen. So let's see what poorest need farming funds, not just green and food. That is what, not just green aid. That is what Oxfam is saying. Oxfam is claiming that, in fact, people like in places like South Sudan and Somalia, including Ethiopia, are on the brink of facing famine. They say the organization is also saying that the war that is taking place in Ukraine has also exacerbated the situation of poor countries in terms of food on the continent of Africa. They are not saying that maybe giving aid to Africa is bad, but I think they need also to form or to finance mechanized farming or substantive farming if they cannot finance mechanized farming, so that Africans should also be self-reliant in terms of food. But always coming with aid on the continent may be helpful, but it will not help to solve the problem permanently. Oxfam is therefore calling on the international community, especially UN, EU and other international organizations, to ensure that they support the farming system in the poorest countries on the continent, instead of just providing them aid. And they're also calling on the international community to see how they can end the war into Ukraine, because the war into Ukraine has exacerbated food situation on the African continent, especially when it comes to energy. Because food is a competitive good, you cannot produce food without energy. Unfortunately, since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine in February last year, we have seen the situation exacerbating food crisis on the continent. And Africa does not have enough energy on its own, maybe, and we do not have enough mechanized farming or machinery on the continent to produce food, and I will rely solely and wholly on the West to provide this thing. So the continued crisis into the Sudan has definitely, into Ukraine has definitely exacerbated our situation, and we are left with no option rather than to behave like beggars. So they are definitely calling on those people to ensure that maybe they end the war, and if there is any aid to be coming into Africa, they shouldn't forget about even supporting the farming system, because maybe it is better for you to teach a man how to fish instead of always giving him fish, because if you teach a man how to fish, he will definitely become self-reliant. So Africa or Oxfam is definitely employing on the international community to ensure that they support the farming system into poorer country. And it is claiming that places like Somalia, Ethiopia, Mozambique, and South Sudan, including North, may end up facing famine in the very shortest possible time. It is unfortunate and quite amazing that Africa, with all the natural resources that we have, with strong forests, rich agricultural land, unfortunately, we are still faced with a situation where we can definitely go to bed without food. Shortage of light is definitely on the increase in the continent, and even in terms of water resources is so high. Places like Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea would not especially expect to get water crisis, and certainly we have it because of the strategically located position. We do not expect to have electricity crisis, but it's definitely happening. We have shortage. In fact, there is no good road network. Our medical facilities are also poor. So all of those things. So I think it is high time the world look into such things and ensure that positions like that are definitely being resolved. So, but Oxfam is saying that the situation in both Somalia, in Somalia, in Ethiopia, and also in part of Northern Sudan is becoming dire, and if critical thinking cannot be made and see how that particular situation can be handled, a huge amount of population may end up go or face famine, which can lead to starvation and has dire consequences on the livelihood of people. So let's see. Nearly couple shot dead in Cameroon attack. In Cameroon, since 2017, the Ambazonian, who are actually living in some part of Bamenda in Cameroon, are fighting war against the French-speaking. So it's like a war against the Anglophone and the Francophone Cameroonians. Although they are same people, but maybe they are the same people living in the same country, but different people. That is why they claim, maybe because of linguistic factor. You have people who are French-speaking Cameroonians, and you have those who are English-speaking Cameroonians. Well, the French-speaking Cameroonians are more than the English-speaking Cameroonians. And if you think about during the struggle for land colonization of Africa, the Bambenda or the Ambazonia who want to establish a self-leadership on their own, we are once colonized by Germany. The Britain also came there and took over the country. So they end up to be English speakers, or we have been schooled into the British system. And when finally everything ended and we saw Cameroon gaining independence, Bazonia was just like a small state within within Cameroon, and the area was being handed over to Cameroon under the trusteeship nation. If you watch at the organization of UN, you see something like trusteeship. So that these are nations who never had the power, the financial resources in terms of security, population, or land size to govern themselves. So what they normally do, they take those nations and hand it over to the bigger nation for security state, in terms of protection, maybe against foreign aggression, whatsoever thing. So that's how come the Ambazonians or Bamenda, we are handed over to the Cameroonians. Unfortunately, Cameroon has never granted them maybe peace, and they have been led by the French mentality. There is different culture and other things. So these people are thinking that they should be independent, and since then there is war. And they end up to call those who they kill as blacklist, meaning they have been collaborating maybe with the government, and they are supplying certain key information to the government. So according to them, the rebels killed them. And a few days ago, 5 people were also shot into the same time. So it's a disgraceful act. The action is dastardly. It is condemnable. I think the world need to watch at this thing and see how they can handle those situations. It is definitely dire, and we are feeling the pain of what Cameroon is going through. So let's come to hundreds of mercenaries landed in Car, that is Central African Republic, the Wagner. Earlier last month, we saw how Prigozhin, who is actually the leader of the Wagner, fell out with Vladimir Putin, and he claimed that he was about to take upon Moscow and he was about to take on Moscow and bring the end of Vladimir Putin leadership. Unfortunately, we saw in Boston when a kind of concession was held. Lukashenko, the leader of Belarus, came directly and negotiated with him. He crossed into Nimes in Belarus, and later on we learned that he was heading into Petersburg. And a few days back, we learned that Vladimir Putin held meeting with Prigozhin. Nobody knows his exactly about. And we also learned that Prigozhin was training the Belarusian army on a kind of warfare, but he's very strategically strong, well located into Africa with a lot of maybe business influence, money, and he had huge amount of followers behind this person. And people were thinking that like Alexei Navalny, who is the Russian maybe a political opponent or main opposition leader of Russia against the person of Vladimir Putin, was caught like a cheeky or maybe like a bird and put into prison, this man would have been done so. But we don't know why he's still facing the strength, and still now the criminal has not been able to maybe put him under arrest. And we are seeing huge amount of the soldiers landing in Bangui, that is the capital of Central African Republic. According to them, they are there to definitely provide strong security for the referendum that is about to be undertaken there, which will definitely either enable the current president to run for a third time or to maybe allow him step down. We are seeing the anti-Balaka and the Christian fighting, the Balaka and the anti-Balaka fighting among themselves. It's it's a very difficult situation, and everything about the security situation in Central African Republic is absolutely elusive. We are hoping and praying that that situation definitely comes to an end in the very shortest possible time. But Africa is deeply divided. The French mentality, the Russian mentality, the British mentality, and the American way of thinking has definitely divided our society. Let's see, we come into Tunisia. Tunisia signs what border policy deal with UK or the EU. That is, the European Union have actually signed a border policy with the Tunisian government led by Kais Saied. Kais Saied, a lawyer but professor, came into political limelight in 2019. People thought that he was politically naive, a political outsider, somebody who have never been into politics. But he believed into the tenets of democracy, and people thought that he would have actually protected the Tunisian democracy, maybe facilitate it to a level that is definitely unchallengeable, because Tunisia, the Arab uprising started there in something around 2011. We saw the regime of Muammar Gaddafi, Abdulaziz Bouteflika of Algeria, Ali Ben Ali, who was actually in Tunisia, Hosni Mubarak, and a lot of other leaders, and all of this. We are still seeing how Bashar in Syria is still facing series of amount of trouble since the Arab uprising. And I think after the Arab uprising, the Tunisian government is the only, or the Tunisian society is the only maybe interrupted but continuous democracy in the Arab world. Unfortunately, this kind of guy who took over, who in his unscrupulous nature, his lack of democratic principle, have led to a series of demonstrations into Tunisia. He has suspended the constitution, rewritten it on its own, and maybe gave himself power, like the power to sack whosoever he thinks and feels that should be sacked. He is now the president, dissolved the position of the prime minister, and also made Tunisia to be a secular state, which is very perfect because Islam is no longer the state religion of Tunisia. However, because of series of demonstrations, attack on democracy, suspension of major government officers, handicapping the parliament, doing away with the powers of the executive, confiding everything into his hand. We saw that people are actually demonstrating against his policies, and he has turned back now, maybe to create a situation where he can buy public sympathy, or the sympathies of Tunisia, by accusing West Africans, especially people from Sub-Saharan Africa, of being responsible for the inequality into Tunisia, political insecurity, exacerbation of high cost of living, and all that things. And most of those Tunisians have definitely been attacking West Africans, especially people from Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and the likes. So instead of him buying, in the name of him buying public sympathy, he has now signed a policy with the EU, and the EU will now help him to prevent migrant living from the continent heading into Europe. But I am afraid, but I have to confess that this man was evidently not given legal power to stop those people. He used his office to ensure that they are intimidated, they are raped, they are tortured, and they are ostracized, or some of their property confiscated. Some of them, their balconies, we are being thrown away whatsoever thing. So if he now has that popular mandate protected by the EU, I wonder what may be happening. I think it is high time our African countries, especially those of us who are living into West Africa, our government treat us very fairly to ensure that pieces of incidents like this do not continue to happen, because the more they happen, the more destruction will happen on the continent. This is a very sad event, and we are praying and hoping that maybe EU and others should think critically and see how they may be able to carefully handle this particular situation in Tunisia, because it's dire, it's so worst, and we are afraid, but we have to confess that things like that may definitely end up to create series of problems on the continent. Today we are seeing a society that is deeply divided, a society that is deeply corrupted, a society that may end up to create series of trouble for others who are definitely on the continent. It's a sad event, and maybe I think Africa need to think twice, and they need to see how they can handle certain situations, maybe without public intimidation and torture from certain people that we think and feel that they should definitely protect the society. So finally, let's come to our last topic. We are seeing 5 countries in Africa with the weakest security network. Africa is a continent, actually, which rich in cultural diversity, natural resources, and economic potential. However, like many other parts of the world, we are seeing that like many other Africa face challenges that varies across nations. Then we are seeing with many African countries actually made some strive in improving on their security system. Many of them actually made some strive in improving on their security system. Then there are still several challenges crippling weak security infrastructure and governance system on the continent. So we are definitely going to watch a few or 5 African countries that are actually facing with weak security network. Let's first start in Somalia. Somalia is actually in the Horn of Africa. It shares borders with the like of Kenya. It shares borders even with Ethiopia. It shares borders with Zambia and other places. So let's see, Somalia is often regarded as one of the most challenging security environments in Africa. Okay, the country has faced prolonged conflict with governance and the presence of extremist groups like Al-Shabaab. The absence of a strong central government and effective security forces has left a power vacuum in that particular part of the continent that exacerbated maybe instability and hinders effort to establish law and order. So it's one of the weakest country, or one of the countries with the weakest security network on the continent. Let's see Democratic Republic of Congo. The capital city is Kinshasa. The capital city of Somalia is Mogadishu. And Somalia is in the Horn of Africa or East Africa. Let's see, DRC also is in East Africa. DRC has been marred by protracted conflict, armed groups, and resource exploitation, leading to significant security challenges. It is one of the richest countries actually on the continent. The presence of multiple militias, ethnic tensions, when you think about the Houthis and the Tutsis, the Janjaweed militias are all found there, and a weak institution has created an environment conducive for violence and criminal activities. See, these factors contribute to a fragile security system that requires urgent attention. But the UN and the world are just watching at the situation with blind eye because they know that the continuous conflict may definitely help them. So let's see Libya. Libya is actually in North Africa. Since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya has struggled to establish stable governance and security operators since the fall of their president in 2011. The proliferation of armed groups, tribal rivalries, and the absence of effective state institutions have created a security vacuum. This situation has allowed various criminal networks, including human traffickers and terrorists, to exploit the country's instability. Then we come to Central African Republic. It is based in Central Africa, as the name suggests. The capital city is Bangui. Okay, Central African Republic has experienced reoccurring political and sectarian conflicts, leading to significant security challenges. Okay, the weak institution, limited presence of securities, and clashes between armed groups have resulted in widespread violence and displacement. Building a robust security system in Central Africa is crucial to ensuring stability and protecting citizens. Let's see South Sudan. South Sudan is in East Africa. Let's see, South Sudan, since independence in 2011, South Sudan has faced immense security challenges, internal power struggles between Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, ethnic tensions, and the presence of armed groups have severely affected the country's security landscape. The weak security operators, coupled with the absence of cohesive national identity, undermines effort to establish stability and peace in South Sudan. So these are the 5 countries. Let's see some of the challenges that they face. These challenges these countries share common challenges that contribute to their weak system. Let's see, the first one is governance and institutional weakness. Governance and institutional weakness. Poor governance, corruption, inadequate state institutions undermines the effectiveness of security system. Inadequacy, because you are seeing, because poor governance system, there's bureaucracy, lack of employment, corruption, all of those things that has exacerbated the thing. Let's see, prolonged conflict and civil war. These are some of the things that led to the weak security network into places like that. We are seeing that war have created a climate of insecurity, making it difficult to establish and maintain robust security. So because of the prolonged conflict and wars, a climate of insecurity has definitely been created. Poverty and socioeconomic is also another huge one. Factors: high level of poverty, unemployment, inequality contribute to social unrest and increase the risks of crime and violence. We know how we are living in an unequal society in Africa. The poor become poorer while the rich are becoming richer by the minute. Then let us see another one. Transitional threat. That is what we're saying. The presence of transitional criminal network from one across continental criminals network in structure, such as arms and human traffickers, have exacerbated security challenges and require international cooperation to combat it effectively. Then we are also seeing potential avenue for improvement. Let's see, this is a potential avenue for addressing the weak system in this country requires comprehensive and multi-phase approaches. We need them. Strengthening governance and institutions, like we build transparent accountable and effective governance system, then that are very essential to establish foundation of a robust security apparatus. It also enhance peace building effort, like promoting dialogue, reconciliation, conflict. Then you also see resolution mechanism can help also to mitigate the conflict, maybe, and lay a strong groundwork where peace and stability can definitely be achieved. They also have capacity building and training. This country investing into training and capacity building of security forces, the judiciary, the civil service, law enforcement agency, maybe to enhance professionalism and accountability and responsible maybe leadership definitely is needed over there. Let's say international cooperation is absolutely needed because the international community have seriously divided Africa. When we encourage international, it's like encouraging regional and international cooperation. All of those things also will definitely help to see maybe how we can develop those part of the continent where we see instability and these border challenges are definitely happening. So let's see the socioeconomic development. We have to promote inclusive economic growth, poverty reduction, then social and development program, and also address the underlying factors. You address the underlying factors that are actually leading to insecurity. So in summary, the countries in Africa with the weakest security system face complex challenges. They face complex challenges stemming from conflict, governance failure, then socioeconomic factors. Addressing these challenges requires sustained efforts, both domestically and through international partnership, by strengthening institutions, promoting peace building initiative, and investing in capacity building. These nations can work towards establishing stable security environment and foster peace, development, and prosperity for their citizens. Thank you very much. It's been Edward Amara, focus on Liberia, West African correspondent, coming to you with the latest development on the continent. Join me back on Wednesday on the same program, Focus on Liberia, Roundtable Africa, where we give you the latest news on the continent. Thank you. Good night.